discuss investing in frontier markets and how to think about de-risking and creating additional transparency within. My name is Dewan O'Donnell, partial host for the evening, along with my colleagues from CESO, and I executive director at JP Morgan, where I invest in commercial real estate and infrastructure globally. I think, having that seat and also, frankly, some entrepreneurial efforts has been really interesting to see and have not only deep but wide purview globally at some of the emerging and frontier new markets. I think there's been a post recently from the institutional landscape. Companies like JP Morgan understand that population will double, say, in the next 30 years plus or minus, right? 25 to 30 years. So that leaves us with 25% of the world's population in Africa. And so how do you lean into those demographics? And folks like Jamie Dimon, who I believe people were listening to today, along with Jeff Bezos at our shop, are also taking trips to the continent to try and best figure out what proof of concept looks like and where we can set up additional flags while we do have offices currently in places like Egypt, South Africa, and the like. Full disclosure, I got to meet Daniel and his team some time ago. I've now been to the continent probably 3 times in the last 3 years, everywhere from East, Kenya, Tanzania, Zanzibar, of course, which we like to call the Miami of Africa. South Africa, places like Knysna, which we like to call the Hamptons. And also Ghana and north to places like Morocco. And I'll be going later this year to Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and other. And so really the goal is to bring enthusiasts, novice, people who have capital, companies, investors, operators, and everyone to the table to better understand, again, this new frontier. And so with that said, I'd like to hand it over to Daniel Block of CESO, and he can tell you a little bit more about what he's transforming as the Zillow of Africa to create transparency and de-risk that value chain of real estate on the continent. Thank you.
Great. Firstly, thank you everyone for coming. So it's first, hopefully many investing in the frontier meetups at UNGA. CESO, as it says, is the Zillow of Africa. Today we're going to be talking about investing in real estate and also VC in Africa. So we have 2 panels, one on real estate and one on VC that we'll hear from today. CESO is the Zillow of Africa. We make it easy to buy, finance, and purchase verified real estate. And so to look at as Dewan said, the situation on the ground right now, the average age in Africa is 18. The urbanization rate is over 50% in most major cities. The real estate market is really booming. And on top of that, Africans in the diaspora, especially here in the US, send $50 billion a year back to Africa. And it's estimated that 30 to 50% of that goes to real estate. But right now, the market is constrained, right? Due to uncertainty in the records and the lack of transparency, is one of the things we're really going to talk about today is how we build the trust and transparency in the market. There's over billions of dollars lost each year in fraud in the real estate market. So what CESO is really trying to do is solve that bottleneck and build a one-stop shop, a verified platform where people can find vetted real estate. So currently, we're live in Ghana, Nigeria, and Liberia. You can check out our app, CESO.global. We have over 200 real estate developers and 15,000 units on the platform. And we recently launched a partnership with Ecobank. So if anyone's interested, for the diaspora who are based here, Canada, and the UK, to take mortgages to buy on the continent. And our plan with Ecobank is to deploy over $1 billion in mortgages over the next 3 years. So now is a very exciting time to come on board. So we invite you, to listen to some of our great panelists about amazing experience, both in real estate and tech, and hope everyone can be a part of the story to really unleash the capital unlock across the continent. So thank you very much, and we'll pass over to the panel.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I met Daniel in Ghana very randomly in a workspace in Ghana. He overheard me talking about a company called Terranet. For those in Canada, Terranet is a $3 billion company, land registry portal, and I like to think about it as sort of serendipity or God, because we're probably the only two people in Ghana that even knew that company. So it's very great to have him as a partner. And I'm very happy to see everybody here. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much, Duan, for hosting us today, and thank you to all the panelists here today. My name is Kweku Essien. I'm an investor in Sesso and also serve as Chief Commercial Officer for the company. And a little bit about myself. I'm Ghanaian. I do live in Canada, Toronto. I do go back and forth. I'm very lucky to have worked for a family office which focused a lot on Africa. And also lucky to have my dad. My dad is a former Group CEO of EcoBank. And as you can imagine, that's where the connection came from. And so for me personally, I always saw the opportunity on the continent. I'd rather live in Ghana than live anywhere else, to be honest with you. And my whole goal in life really is to make sure that it's a place that I want to live, and maybe if I get kids, they also want to live as well. So I'll probably want to have each person on the panel give a little introduction on themselves. We have a very esteemed panel here, some great people that you definitely want to listen to. So perhaps I'll start with the person right next to me. Leila, please, if you don't mind, maybe giving a quick intro on yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Leila Yusuf. I like to go by Leila. I'm from Compass. As you all know, Compass is a technology company and a very driven company that has changed real estate in New York. We are 10 years old. 8 years ago, nobody knew who we were, and everybody thought it was a Ponzi scheme. But now, we went public during COVID. What can you say about that? So I want to thank Goldman Sachs. Thank you so much for having us here. And thank you, Daniel and Ron, for your vision in Africa. I've always had in my mind the Zillow of Africa, like in my head. It was already planted 10 years ago because I love working on a 10-year vision. And when I met you guys, I said, why start a Zillow of Africa while you have these two guys here? So I was born in Nairobi, but I grew up in England and went to school in London and Massachusetts, and I've lived in New York for the past 20 years. And I've been going back and forth to Africa right now, especially in Kenya. So I personally believe that Africa right now, as a global country with real estate, it's one of the most continent that we need to pay attention, and not for you to pay attention, but for me as a New Yorker and as a Kenyan to pay attention, and how to change the market, because we do have a lot of international people who go back and forth, and how can we live this amazing life?
100%. Please, Larissa. And for those that are not aware, Torbedu, please, you can also check out the properties there. There's video of it there, of course, after the panel. You can do that, but please, Larissa.
So I'm Larissa Thorpe, and I'm the CEO of Thorpe Bedu Limited. We're a small boutique real estate development in the mountains in Ebri in Ghana. It's about a 35-minute car ride from the airport. If you know Ghana, and Accra in particular, it's not a very big place. So 35 minutes gets you into the mountains. If you're looking for properties that are very in a serene, cool climate environment, no pollution, no high rises, greenery, then this is the location for you. We're only 3 in partnership. There's myself, my daughter Cassandra, who's here today, so she handles a lot of the marketing aspect, and my husband, who's currently on a project in Nigeria. So he brings to the team 50 years or so expertise in working in construction in Africa, and mainly water and rehabilitation. And for me, I bring the creative eye, the design, the integrity, the keen attention to detail. My standards are, uncompromisable. They are really to the T, and you see when you look at the television screen there. My background, before this, I was a principal of a school, so very, very different. I built my own house in England that gave me this interest in real estate and in development. I enjoy very much what I do, so I've quit teaching and headship, and I focus full-time on my development. I'm half Ghanaian and half Russian. I went to school in Ghana up to O levels and then in Nigeria, so I know how to work in Africa. If you've been to Africa, you know you need to have a certain skill. So being born and brought up there, I do know how to deal with tradesmen, with local people, right up to chief levels, you know, so I've got that in my bag. So come and talk to me if you're interested in high quality buildings, trust, integrity. Thorpe Biddu is your development to look at.
110%, 110%. I'd like to give the floor to my very good friend Dale, my very, very good friend Dale.
Good evening, my name is Dale Bryant, born and raised here in New York. My wife and I relocated to Ghana. It's been 2 years now. September is our 2-year anniversary. My background is Wall Street. I worked at Lehman, I worked at Morgan, running my own investment firm for 25 years now. That's my day job here back in America while I'm in Ghana still. I spend most of my time hosting, recruiting, persuading Black Americans who are thinking about moving to Ghana to bring themselves, bring their family, and more importantly, bring their capital. What's happening now is there was a group of Black Americans who were coming to Ghana primarily on the spiritual connection. But there's a new wave of people coming in for economic reasons, collaborative reasons. It's a drizzle, trickle now. It's about to be a tsunami. And as a result of that, I'm working on I think it might be Ghana's first senior living, retirement living community for Black American expats looking to move to Ghana. I'm actually doing a capital raise here in America to finance that. And I feel the energy in this room. I've talked with some of the people here, a lot of smart people, a lot of well-intentioned capital, a lot of people looking to make connections. And so, very happy to be here, looking to meet and talk with all of you. Thanks.
Fantastic. Maybe let's give a round of applause. Perhaps I'd like to start with with Dale right here. Actually, I've known Dale for 2+ years now, and visited his home as well. We've done many trips together as well, and I always love his story as to why and how he got here, right? And perhaps also maybe more important, why he stayed, right? So perhaps and we actually did assist Dale with finding his own property as well, and that's how we met him. Maybe a random fact as well. Dale is also a YouTuber as well. Interesting enough. So, Renaissance man right here. So, I would love to maybe dive a little bit deeper into that story as to why you ended up going there and why you stayed.
Well, the reason is simple. My wife wanted to move. She was a pharmacist at Kings County Hospital. They were working her to death, as many people know. If you know people in healthcare, they work you to the bone. So she was already overwhelmed, and it was unsustainable to go at that pace until retirement. Also, COVID happened. East Elmhurst and Kings County were ground zero for COVID here in New York. And then, also in 2020, we had the civil unrest, George Floyd, Aubrey, Breonna Taylor. She was really sensitive to those things. And so while none of those things individually would have made her move, collectively, they accelerated her process of thinking about trying something new. She said, let's go to Ghana. I said, I'm not interested. I have a good life here in Brooklyn. She said, let's go to Ghana. I said, okay, dear. And, I got to Ghana, and off the plane, I'm looking at opportunities. There's a lot of value to add to people who got something to deliver. And what I'll say, what kept me is what people can do, what collaboration can do. I liken Ghana to the Bronx in the 1980s. You couldn't give a house away in the Bronx, a building away. And now there are private equity firms on the Grand Concourse building big projects. And that's where Ghana is right now. It's still undervalued, it's still underdeveloped, not for long. And so Accra, the city, is packed, but the other 99.999% of Ghana is where the value is, in dirt, agriculture, mining, real estate. And so what kept me is the opportunity. I said, if any of you came to Ghana, you'd have 10 business ideas before you got to your hotel. And you'd have the likelihood of seeing those things to fruition. So I stayed because, I came because of wifey, but I stayed because of opportunity.
Excellent, very good. And for those that are just joining us today, my name is Kweku Essien, and this is a panel specifically on the real estate opportunities on the continent. We'll have the second panel, which will focus on tech and infrastructure. And Dale here obviously just told a really wonderful story. I always like hearing the story, actually. It fits very well with the thesis for CESO as well. And actually Larissa as well's business fits very well with the thesis as well for us. And we're very grateful to her as well for obviously sponsoring this event. And as I mentioned, you can obviously review some of the properties there as well, the details on there. And really want to maybe speak to you on the challenges of building in Ghana and why you decided to tackle the luxury market as well, and specifically in Ghana.
So I'll start with with your second question. So why I decided to tackle the luxury sector. So Ghana, you've got the lower end, so you're looking at things from anything from 40,000 US dollars to 200,000. And you can also go into the millions. And I was looking for something in the middle. And what I was seeing was, yes, 400, 450,000, but the quality wasn't what I wanted. I'm very used to living in England, very used to high quality of attention to detail in whatever you do, and I wasn't seeing that in Ghana. I had land, 4 acres of land that I invested in at first, got a lot more now, and I thought, right, this is something that I can do. So I sat down and designed the properties, and you also see from my design, it's very, very unique. I'm not into the flat roof or the pitch roof. We've got our standard style that you know that this is a Thorpe Baidu development. So I thought, fine, let me look into this. So started with the design aspect. And then again, COVID happened, like everybody says, and I reflected on me. How would I want my next 50 years to look like if I'm blessed with that? And it wasn't how I was living at that moment in England. So I thought, fine, quit and get to Ghana and see what I can do there. After all, my dad is still there. I want to be going back home. So hence the birth of the company. And I was looking at that middle banding, but very, very high standards. I've had people come to site and say to me, you can put 3 properties on this particular plot. Why don't you do that and maximize profit? That's not what I'm about. First and foremost is my name, the high standards, building a beautiful gated community, second to none in Ghana, and what you're used to living in abroad, and also having that very clean air, serene environment. You are in a gated community, but you're not living on top of each other. So you've still got your space all around you. You haven't got the high rises, you haven't got the pavement all over the place. You don't have to put your ladders on your neighbors, on your site to change your light bulb, and you're touching somebody else's, gate or anything like that. So we're very well spaced apart. I myself live on site. And that's very, very important to me. It's very rare that you will buy a property and be dealing with the CEO all the time. I am there from start to finish. And when we start with the internals, I don't even leave site at all. So I split my time between Ghana and the UK. So this was the birth of Thorpe Baidu, and my daughter is very good on the internet. So we put the websites together. And we thought, fine, let's market this and see what happens. And within the first 2 weeks, I had my first call and my first sale over the phone in a 40-minute conversation. Never met me, never seen me. Now, the challenges that I face, number one is integrity, transparency, trust. Trust in the person, trust in the brand. And this is something that I pride myself in. So I have due diligence reports done on me, done on the land, its ownership and its use. That it hasn't been landmarked by the planning department for anything else other than building development. And that I am the sole owner of all the lands that I'm building on. So that's a report that I share with any interested party first and foremost. And you're then welcome to do your own due diligence then after that. And I talk about transparency. So all through the project, I walk with you. And I'm also very much open to customization. So I will work with you if you want to add an extra room, a larger room, you know, you don't want chrome, you want silver, you know, you want gold, all of these little things, sizing, everything, on board with you. I look at it as your home, and I want it to be right for you. Now, the second challenge as well is, the second challenge is that of expertise and quality assuring. Now, how do you know that what you're building is not going to drop down after you've moved in? The damp issues that a lot of properties face, you won't experience with us. So these are things that I look into with a fine-tooth comb together with my husband. So I'll give you a typical example. In Ghana, you notice that, well, if you know about the market, you know, you notice that people do their light fittings, and I'm not dissing anybody here, I'm talking to you from experience. You know, you're doing your wiring and you notice you've only got 2 wires. There should actually be 3 wires. We wire to British standards. Now, the 3rd wire is your earth wire. And a lot of developers will not give you that earth wire. And why? Because they say that a lot of the fixtures and fittings are plastic. So you don't need that. Well, you do need that. So I've had to stop a whole building when I first started with my husband through Zoom. At the moment, he was again on a project, you know, in Nigeria. And he said, stop the whole project and go back. And you've got to wire everything. Again, using that 3rd wire. So every light socket, every fitting is wired to British standards. Our water system goes through UV filtration before it comes into the house. That's also quality assured by my husband. Everybody has a borehole. So these are all the little details that we really, really hone into. The damp proofing, we use a very innovative system, you know, in England, and I import everything. And that's what we use to sort out the damp proofing issues. The 3rd thing I'll talk about, because I know of time.
Yes.
Yes, is the skill of the workmen. So that's another thing you've got to be very mindful of. You know, and that's something that, as I was saying, I don't leave sight when that is happening. So when we're getting into the internal fixtures and fittings, I stay there. I have my own property on site, and every single tile that is laid, I watch. I'm very particular about spacing. The same on the walls as well as down, you know, on the floors. I import every single thing from the UK. And why do I do that? I've tried and tested Ghanaian products, and it's not up to my standard. The only thing I buy in Ghana is the cement, which again, I make sure that it is quarry dust. I also don't use any hollow blocks. I buy the water, obviously, and also the sand and the stones. Everything else is imported from the UK, where I know that I can trust my product.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And as you can see, this is actually the real deal right here in terms of putting in the work to ensure that the product is A1. And I actually really appreciate that, because actually all of that was very necessary to hear and understand for people out there that really, obviously, real estate is a very analog business, and obviously Sesso is a tech business. But at the end of the day, what we are really looking to do is put together and bring the highest quality of real estate developers, lawyers, banks, stakeholders within the space that are ensuring that, you know, we're putting out forth a very good product to the audience, which obviously can be some people here and also people within the market. So thank you very, very much for that. And I'd like to maybe move to you, Leila, who's sort of navigating obviously the space a bit now, sort of from an earlier onset, but obviously you had your 10-year plan, so maybe actually you've been looking at it longer than I have, maybe in another sense. Kenya is not a market Sesso is in today, but we've spoken very much about, you know, how we can bring obviously our platform there and bring a level of transparency and you know, provide within that space, right, an MLS, a land registry platform, etc. Perhaps it'd be good to understand from you, right, from your lens as a real estate broker who's $1 billion worth of transactions, what do you see in the market in Kenya specifically, but of course then you can touch on the continent.
Yeah, I'll touch first of all for the MLS, for Sesso bringing an MLS. There is no MLS. I mean, an MLS for a lot of people here in America is the online. When you want to buy a home, you go to Street Easy or you go to your Zillow, you look at your home, you call the agent, or your agent calls your agent calls the seller's agent and you make an appointment and see the property. Most people, when they're looking for property, for me especially, I'll talk about my experience, it's through YouTube and Instagram. It's amazing how much the real estate agents in Nairobi that I work and interview, 98% of their buyers come through social media, you know? But for me, as a person who has been in real estate, I think it's very important to have an MLS in Africa because we need Goldman Sachs to invest, individual investors like you to invest, for a consumer to go in and look at a property at Seso. Okay, this is the developer in Ghana, this is a developer in New York who is in Kenya. I would like to buy that. We can connect you with the agent and have a streamline through an attorney who can do all your due diligence, your title, because it's a wild west, you know, completely. It's just like today on the internet when it says let's kill all the brokers, you can just go to Redfin and make an offer, put a down payment, wire money to someone else, and walk in, there's no closing and your money has been gone. As a professional real estate advisor, I need to protect my clients and I need to protect my my developers. So MLS is very important, so important. What I see the growth right now, you know, the opportunities that I see is the growing of urbanization. I mean, Nairobi and Mombasa, I have never seen anything like that. There is high rises going every single hour. The highways, I was even blown as a Kenyan myself. It's like, why do I live in New York? I should move to Nairobi, you know, because I'll have a driver who can drive me. So there's more and more infrastructure that is being built in Kenya. So there's a great opportunity. And I'm really impressed with some of the developers and the finishers that is people are building in Kenya. And you do need an attorney for you to buy a property for yourself. And then the other thing that I think there's an opportunity for the government to really work on affordable housing. You cannot have a $10 million home outside of Nairobi or Manhattan or Nairobi, Lavington, and you're not thinking of your workers who are coming to work for you, that you're paying that $5 million. The government needs to come up with an opportunity to create affordable housing so that the person who is working for you can go and live very close to you, but can afford that for $50,000 US dollar. That is a 200, 300,000. So Nairobi has different prices from super high end to medium and to middle class. So, okay, great. And the other thing is we definitely need an amazing infrastructure. If anyone is from the MTA here, there is an amazing opportunity for subways in Nairobi. Hospitality, tourism, and hotels, and museums. You know, that's a big opportunity. We have a lot of private schools already, so we need the museums, we need big hospitalities to come there. And of course, technology. I want to have a campus technology in my hand when I'm in Nairobi, selling you a home or buying a home for my investor. So that's the future.
That's my cue. That's my cue right there. You're exactly right. And that's what we're going to bring to Kenya. And hopefully we do it with you, Leila. And I'd like to maybe give 5 minutes, open it up to the audience. Perhaps we'll take 2 or 3 questions from anyone who may want to ask a question.
Yeah, so really quick, Larissa, you mentioned the high, incredible standard in which you develop and build, but it really starts with the foundation. And by foundation, not necessarily what's raised and settled, but the land itself. Can you talk a little bit about the value proposition of, say, a CESO, a registry, or a clean title before starting that process, so you felt good about whether you use CESO at the beginning to verify the property, or you use them as a relationship management system to sell properties or manage the asset for you? Just curious as to how you've worked together as a developer, creating that trusted infrastructure that we know is so well needed.
So mainly my relationship with CESO is that at a marketing level.
Great.
And their representatives in Ghana have visited me on numerous occasions, and we have brought clients to site. as well. So that's how mainly, we work together, looking to develop that relationship, as we go through.
Oh, yeah, sure. Sorry, please.
No, she had a question. Thank you to the panel. I think this conversation has done a fantastic job in decoupling sort of the top line macro story that I'm sure a lot of us in the room hear about Ghana, for instance, where we've heard of the fiscal struggles, decoupling that to the incredible story that's happening between Ghana and its diaspora and the contribution that they're making. I think, Dale, we've had the opportunity before to speak to, the $2 billion that was invested in Ghana by first-time visitors in December of 2019, and how material that is relative to the size of the $77 billion GDP that Ghana presently has. As African countries look to grow this relationship with the diaspora, recognize this investment opportunity, Kweku, what are the modalities that CESO is putting in place to build these relationships and make this opportunity more real to rooms like us here in New York? And perhaps, Dale, are you seeing a gap? You're right at ground zero. How big is the demand of people that actually want to be living in this new reality?
Thank you very much. Perhaps you can introduce yourself, actually, as you asked a very, very good question. Please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anele, and I'm from Ikuku Global. Ikuku means treasure, and we work in green and climate finance.
Fantastic, fantastic. And so I'll say this with CESO and the idea, as I mentioned with Daniel, we looked at two different versions or two different ways of solving the same problem, which is trust and transparency right, within the market. So, the one in which most people really, eyeball and talk about endlessly is obviously working with the government. And that's what most Terranet actually did in Canada. They worked with the province of Ontario, and it was an $80 million exercise, right, that enabled them to just digitize Ontario itself. And Daniel and I actually know the founders of the company. We've spoken to them numerous times. And it's very interesting. He said if he were to do it again, he would do it differently. He would actually instead work more so with the private sector and build out a registry from there. And that is really what we decided to do. I love government, but I love them to just cut the ribbon at the end of the process. And instead, we eyeballed especially banks. Now you can look at the United States here. There is no digitized government registry. It's, really, the registry here is the title insurance companies. They've really, foundationally set the standards for real estate transactions in the United States. And it's the same mindset that we are utilizing for CESO, but in a different format, working with the banks. Now why do you want to work specifically with a bank? Because everyone wants to work with the bank. That's why, right? And so, and Duan will know that more than anyone, right? And with the bank, more than anything, the bank we understood something specifically, and the bank understands the same thing. That really the biggest market for real estate in Africa today comes from people like Leila, Dale, Ghanaians, Nigerians who live here. $50 billion that comes into Africa every year in terms of remittance. We're roughly 40-50% of that going towards real estate. And the bank understood that also very clearly. And so the idea with the bank and what we've actually been working with them for over 3 years. I mean, I don't really count COVID maybe, but let's say 2 years or so with them, which is to formulate a process for a diaspora mortgage product, where essentially diasporians, and for those that maybe don't know the word diaspora, but basically Africans that now live abroad, live in the US, Canada, Europe, etc., who want to purchase property back home can efficiently do that in a trusted and very transparent manner utilizing our platform. And so today, as I mentioned, we're in Liberia with them. We'll soon be launching in Ghana and Nigeria. Nigeria has $20 billion in remittance that flows through into the country every year. And the idea of the bank is to potentially have $1 billion roll through our platform over the next 3 years or so, right? And so and really it's been an interesting conversation from there because that also enables us to also build the MLS, right? Because any developer that wants to be on that platform will need to meet a certain standard, right? Anyone who wants to sell their property needs to meet a certain standard. And then from there, you are then building out a registry, a data depository, right? And then from there, you become a data company, more than anything else, right? So that is really where Sesso is going. And that's sort of been the idea from the start, right? And so we're very happy to be at this stage here. And it's a very exciting stage, actually. It's a place where, a lot of you are very lucky to be in the room here today with Daniel and us, right? And Duan and the team as well, because, really we believe that we will pretty much build out a platform which will be the dominant real estate data repository for real estate on the continent, right? So